Session of the Real Community Committee. I'm your chairperson, Councillor Marcus Chambers of the St. Norbert St. River Ward. I'm joined in the chamber with Councillor Allard of the St. Boniface Ward and Councillor Mays of the St. Vital Ward. With us today is our very capable committee clerk, Sarah Vickery, and we'll be joined later by the planner, Devin Clark. I do wish to start by acknowledging that we are located on Treaty 1 territory, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, and Dakota peoples, and the birthplace of the Red River Métis Nation. And the water that we drink is sourced from Shoal Lake 40, located in Treaty 3 territory. So with that, we do not have any delegations, but there is a request for a delegation to speak. I will be recusing myself from this next portion of our meeting, and will turn the chair over to Councillor Allard. I am recusing myself from the perspective of perceived conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Being the chair, I will wait for Councillor Chambers to leave the chambers.
Can we first pass a motion to adopt the minutes from October 30th?
Okay, moved
So
by Councillor
moved.
Mays. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary carried. Just, Mr. Clerk, would you mind? Mr. Clerk, would you mind letting us know, please? I think we're good. Yeah, okay. I think we need a motion to let the proponent or someone speak.
Yes,
So
so
moved by
moved.
Councillor Mays. Madam Clerk?
All right, so
we in order?
that's, yeah, Rule
Yeah.
51 is suspended to allow our delegate to address the committee.
Okay, so our delegate, our delegate's name, well, Madam Clerk? Ahmed? Ahmed?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so you
You're
can come
welcome.
join us at the podium, and if you can repeat your name at the microphone for the record.
My apologies, I didn't have your name in front of me, so. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Amit Bindra, and I am one of the owners of a proposed development at 180 Creek Bend Road.
Welcome, so you have 10 minutes regarding the item.
Perfect. Thank you. Just looking for an extension to start developing 180 Creek Bend. We did ask for an extension before as well. This is just to keep in mind the economic conditions in the market, and there have been some challenges with the construction projects going on right now. We just simply want to request an extension for another year, and we are getting close to start it sometime early spring or summer in 2025.
Okay. I'll let you finish. You have 15 minutes, and then we may have
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, no, that's fine.
So you're done your presentation?
Yes, that's all.
Okay. So I'm loading up the report here. The Winnipeg Public Service recommendation is to limit to satisfy the coming into force provisions of bylaw number 52/2022 be extended to October 28th, 2025. That's what you want?
Yes, please.
So you want us to concur with the public service recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, that's clear to me. Councillor Mays? It seems odd that this is coming up, but
This is different than, we had one last session that was laid over to January, didn't we? Different Creek Bend Road?
We had a plan approval for a different plot of land in that same area.
Okay,
This is an extension of time for a different subdivision.
okay.
like normally we have a 2-year extension of time recommendation with no narrative. I'm not sure why this is different, but
So the request is just to extend,
Correct.
yeah.
yeah.
This is the first extension?
No, this is the second
Second
extension.
extension. Well,
Yes, yes.
Mortgage rates have been
I
tough.
think our record is 4, isn't it? 4 or 5. It's a bit absurd at some other places, but in any event, oh, yes.
You're the
that's in
senior,
here, I
you're the
think.
senior counselor here. You would know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one at Nova Vista, and, yeah, it's unbelievable. Okay, so,
No more questions?
no more questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ahmed?
Thank you. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah. Madam Clerk,
All right, so that is all we have for delegations in that case.
should someone go get Councillor Chambers or?
Sure.
Do we want to, could we deal with item 2 first, then get Councilor Chambers?
Oh,
Does
of
that make
course.
more
We
sense?
can do that, yeah.
Okay,
Just
so I
logistically,
think we have concurrence. I don't think we need a motion to do that.
So we're agreeing with the extension of time, or do we
I'm
want to speak with
agreeing.
the public service?
I'm agreeing.
Well, no, I mean, I think we need to suspend, do we need to suspend the rules, or we can go right into debating number 2?
We can move into item number 2.
Okay, so on number 2, Councilor Mays, you have a motion?
Yes, so it's understood that we're okay to deal with number 2.
Yes,
first.
I had a question. This is
and-
like, the question was, is it okay to go to number 2? Do we need to vote for that?
No, we do not need a motion to move to item 2. We can do item 2 right
So
now.
on
Okay.
item 2, Councilor Mays, you
I'll
have a motion.
move the requested extension of time.
Okay, Councilor Mays moves the public service recommendation.
All right, so that would be forwarded to the SPC on property and development.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Contrary, carried. Okay,
And now
we
we'll get
can
your
go get Councilor
perspective.
Chambers.
And then the unfortunate 40-minute
Right,
break
break.
to public hearing.
Well, perhaps we can have a fireside chat. Councilor. We need a fire for that.
We should. Couple of things to talk about.
Oh, where's my wallet? I've got too many things. I try to keep them in the same place so that I don't forget where they are, but it all seems to get mixed up. Spend so much of my time looking for things.
I read a great quote recently
Okay.
from Lyndon Johnson's wife. It just
I will,
we spend so much of our lives worrying about stuff that never comes to.
I will resume the chair.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
here, we're back on? Or we've always been on?
Okay, so have we moved the minutes from our last meeting?
We have.
And we've dealt with item 2 already.
Oh,
And
okay.
It made more sense, otherwise you were like coming in.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the report number 1, citizen members of Riel Library Advisory Committee.
Madam Clerk, can you read us out the 3 names then that are being suggested?
Yes, so the 3 names we have is Kelly Luadniak, Diane Mary Perry, and Dr. Andrew Bajaj.
Okay.
I'll move appointment. Do we need to specify who gets no, this is 3 citizens for a 2-year term?
Yes, so we have 3 vacancies for a 2-year term and 1 vacancy for the balance of the 2-year term.
So we'll name these 3 for the 2-year term, and I didn't
Right.
realize we still have 1 to fill then, I guess. But, okay, I'll move those 3 names.
Okay, move discussion. I want to recognize Dr. Bajaj, who's done exceptional work in the realm of science and technology and engineering, in particular promoting it to young people, also in particular to young women and women, and we need more. We need more women in STEM, and Dr. Bajaj is an example, and also practically encourages it through science fairs and by her own example. So.
And thank you for that, Councillor Allard. I know Dr. Bajaj is also joining the Human Rights Committee of Council.
Oh,
And looking forward to her exceptional work through her reputation in terms of the work that will be done on the Human Rights Committee of Council.
Okay.
So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Good.
All right. Is there any new business?
Oh, thanks, yes. I'll move to consider an item of new business.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I've got a per capita grant to the convener, Mike Friesen. I'll give you the spelling and the formal name. We'll say 500 at this point. It may be a little more than that, but I can do that through delegated, I guess. This is for, he's the provincial Reach for the Top convener. So this is I've taken that on as the patron of Reach for the Top in this town. So use some of my ward funding to help with the Reach for the Top expenses. So that's 500. If I have to add a little more through delegated, I've got room to do that.
Well, and if there's any more funds needed, I would happily support that as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Carried.
Yes, Mr. Friesen's at Fort Richmond Collegiate, not that it's payable to Fort Richmond Collegiate, but just for sake of clarity, yes.
Any other business?
For me?
Seeing none, we can conclude now until hearings at 10:30.
Yes, we'll adjourn until public hearings.
Very good.
Okay. I'm on city business. at 11 o'clock, so I will not be part of the hearings that commence at 10:30. It'll be Councillor Mays and Councillor Allard.
Okay. So I'm calling this meeting to order. My name is Matt Allard. I'm City Councilor for St. Boniface. I'm joined by my colleague, Councillor Brian Mays, the City Councilor for St. Vital. And I'm going to start the meeting by reading the treaty acknowledgement. So, Winnipeg est situé sur le territoire visé par le traité numéro 1, le berceau et territoire traditionnel des peuples Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Ininu, Cri et Dakota, et sur les terres ancestrales nationales des Métis de la Rivière-Rouge. Notre eau potable provient de la Première Nation Shoal Lake, numéro 40, qui est située sur le territoire visé par le traité numéro 3. So in English, I would like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Ininu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nations in Treaty 3 territory. With that, Madam Clerk, would you lead us into this meeting?
All right, so in accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, the process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application. Next, those registered in opposition are heard, followed by those registered for information. Finally, the applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. Please note that when your name is called, it is your opportunity to speak. However, you're not obligated to do so. For a more in-depth overview of the public hearing process and other information pertaining to what happens before, during, and after a public hearing, please consult the City Clerk's Department website. Please note that all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Should you have any questions after the hearings have concluded, please contact the City Clerk's Department. So item 1 is rezoning at 792 St. Mary's Road under file DAZ 217 of 2024. In accordance with the City of Winnipeg Charter and the Development Procedures Bylaw, this is a combined hearing, and the following item will also be heard at the same time. Namely, item 2 is a variance at 792 St. Mary's Road under file DAV 196430 of 2024D. Please note, additional communications were received in support of and in opposition to the matter after the agenda was published, which have been distributed to all members of the committee. The process the committee will follow is the applicant will be heard first, followed by those in support of the application, those registered in opposition, and those registered for information. The applicant may return to speak in rebuttal to comments made. However, no new information is permitted. All participants have been muted and will only be permitted to speak when called upon. Once you've been heard, you can either remain in the Zoom meeting or leave and continue to watch live via the city's YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live YouTube meeting right now, please mute your audio player. We'll turn it over to Public Service to give an overview.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the subject property is located at 792 St. Mary's Road in the Norbury neighborhood of the St. Vital ward. The subject site is 4,533 square feet in area and is currently occupied by a single-family residential dwelling that was built in 1928 and has vehicle access from a concrete back lane off of Glen Avenue. Under the Complete Communities Direction Strategy, the site is within the Mature Communities Policy Area, and the property is currently zoned R2, Residential 2-Family District. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property from the R2 zoning district to the C1 zoning district in order to construct a 3-story, 34-foot tall residential and commercial mixed-use building. Commercial space is proposed on the ground level with a floor area of 1,600 square feet. 4 dwelling units are proposed above that, with 2 on the 2nd story and 2 on the 3rd story. 4 parking stalls are proposed off the lane. 4 indoor bike parking stalls are proposed with access from the rear ground level of the building. Landscaping is proposed in a manner that meets and exceeds the zoning bylaw requirements, and variances are being sought for a reduced lot size, reduced front and side yard setbacks, reduced lot area per dwelling unit, as well as some minor projections and parking variances. The Urban Planning Division has recommended support for the proposed rezoning and variances for the following reasons. The proposed development aligns with the policies of Complete Communities Direction Strategy in that the site is located within the Mature Communities Policy Area and is located on an arterial roadway, namely St. Mary's. Policies within the Mature Communities Policy Area indicate that low-rise residential between 1 to 4 stories, as well as mid-rise residential between 5 to 8 stories, will generally be encouraged on arterial and collector roads where compatible with adjacent land uses. The adjacent lot to the north is zoned R2 and was recently approved for redevelopment into a 6-unit residential building at a height of 35 feet. The subject site is a corner lot located on St. Mary's, which is an arterial. Active transportation pathways are nearby along Fermor and Dunkirk, as well as Fermor east of St. Anne's. Frequent transit also currently serves St. Mary's, which is identified in the Transit Master Plan as a future rapid transit route. As for the positioning of the building with a shallower front and corner side yard, Policy 2.2 under Complete Communities encourages the location of commercial or mixed-use buildings at or near the front and corner side yard property lines to create a pedestrian orientation. Recommended conditions of approval for the rezoning include plan approval, as well as restrictions for private approaches to the site from either St. Mary's or Glen Avenue. Under the variance, a condition is recommended that requires 5 bicycle parking stalls, 4 that are secure and 1 out front. Overall, the proposed development provides a modest amount of intensification that is sensitive to the surrounding context. And that concludes my overview. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Councilor Mays, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you for the overview. I do have a couple of questions. Firstly, we've got the square footage. How wide is this? What is the St. Mary's Road frontage, I guess, is the width to me?
Sure, let me pull that up.
Based on the math, 40-something, I'm guessing, but it might be 50.
Yeah, it's around 50, just
Okay.
under 50.
Yeah, and relatively easy math, it's got to be about 100 or so deep then. Okay, the building itself is how, obviously no height variance needed here, as the building's 34. Do we have the stat? I can always ask the developer, but how deep is that building?
I can pull that up as well. That's so it's an odd shaped lot, and the building follows kind of those angles of the property. But one side of the building is about 77 feet. And that's the one that's adjacent to the future 6-unit building. And then the other side is. Where is it? 73. Okay, 73.
Okay, thanks. So
Thank you.
if this were mid-block on Glen, we'd have issues with not height, but we'd have issues with depth, presumably. So let us discuss it's a bit tricky what the context is here, right? Because you've got infill guidelines that as of July became infill standards. And this is, sadly, I won't be able to have a debate with Mr. Winthrop about whether this should be in the mature communities or not, because inarguably it is it's in the mature community boundary, but there's a PDO referenced here, let's knock that off first, and then we'll talk the hearing next week about corridors. Okay. So what is and you've eloquently discussed the complete communities. What's the framework here? What context, if any, do the infill guidelines? Because I don't know when this thing was filed, so maybe it's which set of rules. I'm just trying to clarify in my own head which set of rules are applying.
Okay, so the property is located in the mature communities section of Complete Communities. The infill guidelines are applicable to the mature neighborhoods. However, in instances where there's a mix of uses, the infill guidelines were not designed in a manner to contemplate that. So as far as applicability, the infill guidelines do not apply here. The Mature Neighborhoods PDO, which has come into effect recently, it does cover the area, but again, those rules only apply to singles, 2s, and 3-unit buildings. So again, this proposal falls outside the scope of that.
Eloquently said. So is that how we're now, the guidelines are now the mature PDO, is that our?
For the time being, the guidelines apply to development outside of the, well, they apply to singles, twos, and threes.
Right.
But there is no zoning rules in place that guide above that. So fours,
Right.
fives, and above.
No, it was just a
Yeah.
lexicography. Matt will appreciate it. Just a quick, we used to say info guidelines, they're not guidelines anymore. They've been enshrined, so we're now referring to that as the PD, the Mature Communities PDO. Okay, next question. Next week, we have, perhaps not unprecedented, but close to unprecedented, we have full council doing a hearing, a public hearing on the malls and corridors. The attentive reader will say, okay, it's St. Mary's Road, that's a corridor. So why isn't this developer waiting a year and they'll get 10 stories or 8 stories or something? But is this, though on St. Mary's, I'm not sure this is part of of one of the corridors that we'll be dealing with next week. Thoughts?
Correct. So the corridor and malls PDO is coming forward to council next week. The agenda is published, and it identifies that it is applicable to corridor sites that are identified within complete communities as regional mixed-use corridors or urban mixed-use corridors. And St. Mary's has elements that are identified as either regional or mixed-use, urban mixed-use corridors. However, this particular site does not fall on either of those. So the corridor PDO would not be applicable to this site.
Okay, thanks. I didn't spot that, the planner did, so I can't say that I deftly picked that up, so that was good work there. But so if this application were Moore and St. Mary's, Ustick and St. Mary's, somewhere down there, south of St. Vital Road, that might be swept in under the regional mixed-use corridor, but by the time we get as far north as Glen, we're not in the regional mixed-use corridor.
That's correct. So the urban mixed-use corridor picks up at Norbury Drive and extends to about Worthington Avenue on St. Mary's.
Okay,
And then again, further north, picks up at about Major Drive and continues up to about Carrier.
okay. Interesting. Well, interesting to me, at least. So, yeah, that's, not all properties along St. Mary's are treated the same. It's interesting. Okay. I think that's it. So no height variance needed. This is that great rarity, a concrete lane in this part of it's the only one around there, interestingly, probably because the library's fed off that lane. Parking you've dealt with, landscaping you've dealt with. You made reference to St. Mary's is identified as a future rapid transit. Is that really relevant? I mean,
We're not.
what does that even mean, frankly? Like, I'll concede the point, it's supposed to be a frequent route as of June next year, but that just seems ethereal. We had a future rail line going through Royalwood at one point, and now we don't. So we planned around, like, hey, where are we going to put the station? Yeah, some of this stuff never comes to pass.
Fair, sure. And so it was just a point to note that it's identified in the transit master plan as a potential future rapid transit corridor. We're not basing our support on that
Okay.
rapid transit corridor. It's a current or frequent frequent transit corridor, and that is
You
sufficient.
couldn't get, there's a bus, adjacent. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we'd be having a different discussion if it was this thing was in the middle of Glenview, Nickel, somewhere in there. It's a different discussion. It's gravel lanes, it's a different set of rules here, so.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for the information. On we go.
Yep. Madam Clerk?
All right, so we'll invite the applicant down. John Wintrip, you have 10 minutes to come to a presentation.
we have to have a break in it.
No opposition.
I thought we had,
The two letters of support.
thought we had 3 or 4 in opposition.
Oh,
There was some online noise about that, but maybe not.
they weren't in the folder.
Oh, they may have assumed. I mean, my original assumption was you should take this and run, because if we sure I'll kill this, see in a year when they're building a 10-story as of right, but
It works. I'm asking AI what it's all about.
Good morning, councilors. I'm getting over cold, so if you hear my voice crack, that's the reason why. I think I'm the only one doing public hearings this week, too, as well as last month. I'm here for 792 St. Mary's Road. My name's John Winstrup. I'm a professional planner, accredited in Canada and the USA. We're here for public hearing for 4 units, 4 parking stalls, and a ground floor commercial. I'm the applicant representing the property owner. We need rezoning and variances. We're at the Real Community Committee here today. We submitted the application back in June, 158 days ago, prior to any of those PDOs being adopted. Again, we're looking to do 4 residential units on top of a commercial space. It's within 800 meters of frequent or rapid transit. 792 St. Mary's is in the Norbury neighborhood of St. Vital Ward, 3 doors south of Fermor Avenue on the west side. We're at the northwest corner of Glen Avenue and St. Mary's Road, currently zoned R2. The lot, by the way, I'll get into that, but it's a echelon type formation and then a parallelogram is the type of lots along that side of St. Mary's Road. We're in an intensification target area, the Major Combined Sewer District. Major.
Come
Again, I
on.
will be butchering names as I do around the world.
Right, so we are indebted to you in some ways for spotting that we had 2 different combined sewer maps. That was the Berrydale fiasco, but this is definitely in, right? This is in.
This is in, yeah, and the new app, thank you for the counselor for that. Actually, when you're, I believe, Chair of Water and Waste had this great app or a map now on City of Winnipeg website. I direct a lot of people to do it. And then right away we contact Water and Waste and say, look, we're in this combined sewer district. Could you give us feedback? That's been fantastic. The PDO, Mature Neighborhoods PDO that you heard about, were in Area 1. Of course, that was adopted in July after we made our application, and as you heard, is only for single-family dwellings and duplexes and triplexes. Interesting enough, if you're renovating your house in that area now, you actually have to go through that process. I have a lot more clients now. Within a 50-minute, I'm sure you all know the neighborhood. I've been down there many times. I've done a lot of projects. I've spoken about it before. There's a community club, a school, the park, library, restaurants, a number of schools, the grocery stores over at Fermor and St. Anne's Road. There are a number of amenities within 15-minute walking, both civic and private. The Y, the school, as I mentioned. Oh, I should mention, it's a very walkable community. Currently, transit is the 14 and the 54 up and down St. Mary's Road, plus we have transit, the 16 on Fermor is literally just up the street from us. In 2025, we're going to be less than 100 meters from the FX2 and the 557. The FX2 rolls all the way through, will roll through Osborne Village all the way out to St. Vital Mall. And 700 meters from the F6 and the F7. F6 on Dunkirk, the F7 over on St. Anne's Road. I think I know more about transit in St. Vital than in my own neighborhood now. Multiple cycling routes nearby. Front Street is St. Mary's Road. There are no front driveways, concrete sidewalk, no stopping on the west side. It's a P1, 100 feet wide, full-time truck route, winter route. The flanking street is Glen Avenue. It has limited front driveways. Most of the properties use the rear public lanes. There's no parking on the south side. It's a P3. back lane is concrete, garages, some gravel driveways, it's 16 feet wide. It connects Glen, goes past the library all the way down to Killarney there. Directly to the north of us is R2, to the west is R1. Across the street, we have, well, there's C1 at the corner. That park that you, I believe, just renamed is actually Zone C1. Across the street from us is R2 and C2. To the north, currently it's a single detached dwelling, but I've made a plan approval application for sixplex, 6 parking. That was already approved. We're in the plan approval stage. I submitted that back in August. I hope to have the plans for this design. The design I'm showing you is the latest one that we submitted, I think, Friday or last week. It still needs to be the plan approval. I guess it could change, but that's what's looking towards the directly north of us is a sixplex. On the other side of St. Mary's Road, you've got some single detached dwellings. To the south of us is a single detached dwelling on the other side of Glen. Across the back lane is a single detached dwelling. It fronts Glen. It's got the gravel back lane, and then with the an odd shape, it's got a deeper east side yard. Our lot, we're zoned R2. It's 4,533 square feet, 54.97 by 120. It's a corner lot. The front yard alignment came in at 23 feet. Again, there's only a few dwellings on that block. The front yard alignment came in at 23 feet.
The width of the property, you mean the,
The front yard alignment in terms of where the building has to be placed for the
setback,
front
yeah.
yard, the setback. That would be based on the existing dwelling to the north. As I said, I represent that landowner, and we're demolishing that. I'll get into what we're building there. It's 44.97 feet wide, the lot, 120 deep. But again, it's parallelogram. It's odd shape. Single detached dwelling, built 1928, access from the rear public lane. There's one tree in the front yard.
is that next door or that's this one?
That's that tree there, yeah.
No, not, the house I'm looking at is what is on there now?
Yes, that's that's the house.
792, okay.
Yeah, that's 792.
Okay.
Single story house. The trees in the south side yard, those are actually in the public right of way. So those trees on the, that you can see with the fence behind it are in the public right of way. We're not touching those trees. The tree on the other side of the fence, depending on its location, it might have to be removed. From the back, there's one tree in the rear yard right at the corner of the garage. That absolutely will be removed, as well as the garage. So we have a garage as well as an outside parking stall. Looking at 3-story building, commercial on the ground floor, 2 stories of residential above it, balconies on the east and west side, no balconies on the south. Again, that's looking at it, ground floor commercial, 1,600 square feet. Vehicle access from the public lane for 4 parking stalls. Changing it to C1 zoning. 4 to 11 foot front yard setback, 1 to 2 foot.
Just before you,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like farm zoning now, it's residential, what is it, R2 or something now? Like
Yeah, it's zoned R2 right now.
So you could do a duplex on there, you could, I
I
mean,
could have done a 4-plex with just a conditional use. We wanted a mixture with the ground floor commercial.
okay, that's worth saying publicly.
Yeah, the change in zoning is to allow the ground floor commercial.
Yeah, okay.
I'll get into what's allowed in the C1. Front yard, 4 feet. We need some variances. The front yard, 4 feet to the residential portion. That's right at the south east corner of the lot. At the northeast corner, it's 11 feet, but the southeast corner, it's 4 feet, again, because of the shape of the lot. It's an odd-shaped lot. Corner south side yard is 2 feet. What we've tried to do is pull the building up towards the corner to establish that corner entrance into the on Glen Avenue, make it more like a corner store, corner lot, and pull it away from the existing residential. We have the 4 parking spaces instead of 5, an accessory parking area, a parking stall length of 22 feet instead of 23 feet. Again, it's just the way it's being measured. It's a parallelogram type lot. We actually have like 23 feet if you measure it that way. We need 22 feet based on the angle. And the insufficient buffering of a parking or loading area, that's pretty much a given if I want access through a public lane. This is what we have going forward to the, directly to the north is a sixplex with a 6.91 foot south yard against this property and a 15-foot front yard. It's the same builder, actually, for both of these properties. So it's the same builder, so they're obviously have an interest in making sure they have something that fits together. Again, the plans might change, but that's what we'd like to go forward with. What will face the adjacent properties to the west from the subject lands, windows and balconies face west. As I indicated, the east side yard on the house across the lane from us is deeper than typical because of the odd shape of the lots. That's what would face towards the north is a fence and then some piano windows. The units are 1,370 square feet, 3-bedroom. So 3-bedroom units is a good family size.
It's going to need an extension.
1,600 square feet of ground floor commercial.
You need a few more minutes?
Yeah, give me 2 minutes.
I'll move an
wrap up.
extension of 2 minutes then.
So moved, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried.
I think, last month I was here for a C1 zoning agreement amendment upon St. Anne's, which was approved. Thank you. But what's allowed in C1 is pretty restrictive. It's not like C2. We're looking at, we like to do multiple family dwellings and then have a ground floor commercial. Some of the examples are daycare center, animal hospital, kennel, restaurant, office, personal service, medical, dental, retail. Looking at the market out there, and certainly if the council wants to restrict some of the land uses that are available in C1, it's more likely we're going to see personal services, medical, dental, optical, offices, things like that, or I'd say what the market is. Perhaps retail, but there's not a strong market for that right now. But so I can understand if the council wants to attach a zoning agreement to it to restrict some of the uses. We're really looking for the 4 dwelling units, 4 parking stalls with the commercial ground floor. Requires the rezoning and the variances and all those items. So that's what we're looking for here today is the approval for the, the dwelling units as well as the commercial space. I can understand any kind of conditions the committee wants to put on there, such as a plan approval, as well as perhaps you're contemplating restricting some of the C1 commercial land uses. So that's, the C1 is at the lowest end of the category. That's typically what you see within a neighborhood, in a mature neighborhood is C1, whether it's like across from Laura Seacourt School in Wolseley Avenue or somewhere else like that. It's not a large, C2 is typically what you see along corridors, Portage Avenue, Corden, et cetera. I'm open to any kind of questions.
Councilor?
Normally, this is where I try and get you to pave the lane, but the lane's already paved and has been for decades, so that's a moot point here on this one. So 4 units, each 3 bedrooms, or I missed the detail there?
Yeah, there are 3 bedrooms. Yeah, they're all, this is a typical floor plan for the residential level, which will be floors 2 and 3. 1,370 square feet, 3-bedroom units. These are generous sized units that would allow a family to go in here.
And it's rental, this isn't,
Yeah, this would typically be a rental project. I think it's a great location because of the school so close by that you can get a family in here and,
well, it's a high school, but there are.
There's the other one on the other side of the, I know it's within 15 minutes that, I can't remember the name of it, on the east side of St. Mary's Road.
St. George's.
Yeah,
too far,
yes.
Yeah, and French Emerging.
And there's a community club and the Y and the
Oh, yeah,
library.
that's, yeah, fair point on all that. You're not needing a parking variance, are you?
Yes,
You
4
are-
parking stalls for the 4 residential units and essentially no parking for the commercial. Along Glen Avenue, there is available parking on the north side of Glen Avenue and like right along this flanking of this building here.
Yep.
I don't see parking going up the street or in front of people's houses, which is always a concern for residents nearby. But with the 4 residential stalls in the back and then the commercial, I think you're looking at a light commercial in here, mostly personal services that you already see along St. Mary's Road there. There's hairdressers and other types of things happening.
I don't know if you, there was a question I'm blanking on what my question was, if you've got any.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always like to ask about trees. The
Yeah, well-
plan approval.
Yeah, we'll plant trees. Again, so the trees that I indicated, if I can find the picture, that are in the public right-of-way. So the public right-of-way goes past the sidewalk, usually 12 inches, 8 to 12 inches. That fence is on the property line essentially. So those trees are not ours, and we're not going to touch those, and we can plant a few more trees in the public right-of-way. We're happy to do that. There's a program where you work with the city forester, and you have to have an approved certified arborist plant trees in the public right-of-way. And then, of course, we'd happily come forward for plan approval to be able to plant more trees on our property.
And then,
And
Mr.
we have space, I should add, to add trees along the front. So we didn't make the front yard zero that you would see maybe in a commercial village area. We're providing a front yard anywhere between 4 feet to 11 feet. It's wide enough to plant trees.
So as you may know, Mr. Winthrop, I like to attach conditions to rezonings. This is Councilor Mays' ward, so I may not be as well as hands-on, I guess, but you've helped me in the past with
Yeah.
the size of trees and mandating the specific caliper size. Can you remind me what that number is in terms
Yeah,
of deciduous?
usually for a coniferous tree, the pine type tree
Yeah.
is 6.5 feet. And then for a a deciduous tree, the leafy tree,
Yeah.
a 2.5-inch caliper.
Is that what our city guideline says already, though?
Nah, that's something I tried to put forward like 15 years ago as a guideline.
What's the guideline to the public service?
Requirements in the zoning bylaw that speak to
Okay.
this, and it's 6 feet for the coniferous, and it's 2.5.
Oh, okay, so it is in line with the zoning
It is in line
bylaw?
with that.
Yeah, and then there's also a gallon size for the shrubs as well. I can't recall that off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll come forward with plan approval, again, at the community committee, because it's a rezoning, and that should be in the a zoning agreement amendment, or sorry, zoning agreement.
So I got the biggest win for trees ever with a, well, much bigger build. We got 2 tree wells on Provencher Boulevard, funded by the developer through the zoning agreement, so, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Councilor Mays' ward, so, but that worked, I mean, they're not.
Yeah, that
yet.
works for me. Like, I brought that forward to the city like over a decade ago, saying that you could, whenever a developer comes in, you could be asking them to, provide money for a tree somewhere else. Like, if every time a tree was removed on a property and the developer paid cash, that's a program in other cities that have been around for decades, where if you're removing a tree on your property, you're providing that, a money to plant a tree in Winnipeg. Every developer I've ever talked to said they were fine with it.
Yeah, well, I like to put it right in the zoning, in the development agreement, that way there's less debate and more trees.
Yeah, that's why I said we're willing to plant trees in the public right-of-way, whether it's on Glen Avenue or St. Mary's. There's already some there. I know the program, again, is you have to work with the city forester and get an accredited arborist in the private sector to oversee the selection and planting of the tree.
According to the last consultant I spoke to, there was, for the tree wells, I believe they were $20,000 each. That's like something that, I mean, that's what you need on any arterial probably with the salt, but maybe not.
Yeah, I see more tree wells going along more high-speed traffic roads. Like along Glen Avenue, there's a wide enough boulevard there that I can plant trees in the boulevard. I don't think I need a tree well there. St. Mary's Road, I think I'm
I
trying
get
to think if there's a
complaints, I
boulevard
get
there.
complaints from people trying to drive on to St. Mary's about the city failing to maintain and trim the existing shrubbery and this affecting lines of sight, so I'm,
Yeah, well,
I would rather plant trees along the Glen Avenue
Yes.
public right-of-way.
that would make more sense.
I'm asking Mr. Winthrop in part for my own information.
Oh, sure.
As, I've often added those conditions with the support of the proponent, and
Yep,
we got more trees, so.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I'd be very agreeable to planting trees along the Glen Avenue public right-of-way that flanks this property. It's a wide boulevard. It's a wide, 66-foot wide, I believe, public right-of-way. The concrete, the cartway is is only 2 lanes. So I can't see that road widening or being reconfigured anytime in the future. And so that's why I think planting trees along the boulevard is more than acceptable and quite possible. St. Mary's Road, I'm not sure what the future plans are in terms of whether it's going to remain a grass boulevard, become concrete, or become more urban, or widened, or changed, or configured, or because I think there's talk about running a rapid transit BRT down the middle of it one day, or
Right.
I'd like
So-
to see that road reconfigured, and that might change the boulevard.
So thank you, Mr. Wintrope. Councilor Mays is a ward.
Yep.
You may have other infrastructure priorities. Yeah, leave it to you.
I sense the planner had an answer to a question there.
Sure, just with respect to the boulevard planting, it is identified in the servicing agreement that plans are to be submitted to the Director of Public
Right.
Works to review for planting on both Glen Ave and St. Mary's Road.
2 things then. There's no height variance requested or required here. What would be under the existing zoning, what's the height? And under the requested zoning, obviously there must be a height limit.
Sorry, for the buildings or for the?
Yeah, for height, for the building.
Yeah, so under R2, outside of the PDO, R2 allows for 35 feet.
Okay.
Within the PDO, it's 28. For C1, it's 35 feet.
Okay, so this isn't an area where, as of right now, somebody could build 7 stories. But they're under 35 here.
Correct.
Okay. You're in a CSO district. The Kowalik has signed off some sort of servicing report here on behalf of the city. So you're to be determined what measures you're taking to determine that there isn't additional flow into the system here. I mean, you're going to have to do something.
Yeah, so the ACG report identifies that a technical memorandum needs to be prepared and submitted to confirm these things.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of properties along St. Mary's. It's not my first one. And there's some other people doing things, and I'm in communication with there's 2 different engineering groups who are doing work along this stretch of St. Mary's Road, and a lot of the developers we're talking amongst ourselves to see what the issues are and how we can work together to resolve them if they are coming up on properties. The initial feedback we have is we've got to, meet the provincial regulations.
Right, so there's some sort of discharge control device?
Yeah.
That's coming, okay.
For the land drainage, because it's the combined sewer.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that's it.
Your questions, okay. Thank you, Mr. Wintrope. I think there's no more questions from the committee.
Excellent, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
All right, so for the record, we have nobody registered to speak in support, but looking to the gallery, seeing none, so we'll move on to opposition. We have Aaron Scott joining us over Zoom. Aaron, if you can unmute your Zoom and join us.
Hi,
Hi. All right, so you have 10 minutes.
thank you. Hopefully my connection lasts. I'm actually I'm in Norway for work for the week, so I'm calling. It's 6 p.m. my time right now. So my name is Aaron Scott, and I am a longtime resident of Glen Avenue. I have spoken to quite a few neighbors, not just on Glen, but the surrounding streets and area, that are very concerned about this rezoning at 792 St. Mary's. And while I appreciate that there seems to have been thought and implications for St. Mary's, I don't know that adequately we've had considered the implications for the people who actually live on Glen. So I'm just going to start with some short-term concerns and then move into some long-term ramifications. So first off, residents are really concerned about access to this street. Number one, we're not able to turn right onto Killarney, which is the street that intersects Glen, Nickel, and Glenview between 3:30 and 5:30. This was a restriction that we actually greatly appreciate. It was put in place many years ago due to an excess amount of people that were turning onto Killarney to kind of beat the light at St. Mary's, if you will. And they do this to avoid waiting at the yield. But still, it's commonly observed that people regularly run the stop sign at Killarney and Glen or barely stop in their rush to get to St. Mary's. I've been almost hit multiple times from people running the stop sign, and my mom was T-boned a few years ago here. And my thought process there is obviously Glen and St. Mary's is going to have to be closed temporarily to do some construction at the end of the street. By temporarily removing this restriction, it's only going to serve to promote traffic incidents and increase safety concerns for people who are more than likely going to turn at this intersection. But if we leave that up, if we leave the restriction up that you can't turn onto Killarney, then the people that live on Glen and Glenview and Nickel are going to have trouble accessing our own houses, as again, presumably construction is going to block off the end of the street, which means that we're going to have to put excess traffic down Glenview and Nickel because it's the only access point. You cannot reach Dunkirk from these three streets. So it's going to increase traffic on these streets at a time when Winnipeg is noting a very heavy increase in pedestrian and bicycle deaths from vehicles. Like the last time construction was done on St. Mary's to build one of these sixplexes, also, the construction vehicles ate up the street and it was left for months, causing multiple flat tires for any matter of vehicles that drive down this street. It's also unclear what this variance is going to do in respect to accessibility for the library, for the people who have garages and access on this street, and garbage collection in that back lane. The library is a one-way, one-lane back lane, and access to the library parking is solely derived from that back lane. When I spoke to the people who work in the library, they had no clue that this was coming down the pipeline. And for people who don't have driveways in the front or who have garages in the back, the variance gives rise to questions in regards to being able to access it. So it doesn't really necessarily contemplate the effects that this construction is going to have on, again, library clientele. Like if people can't access the library, they're not going to go to the library. And further, we're going to have profound issues parking on our own street, which remains an ever-present challenge already. We deal, as people who live on Glen, with overflow from Glenlawn Collegiate parking, overflow from the YMCA parking, and overflow from the soccer field parking. When we allow a commercial development that has no assigned parking, people will inevitably resort to parking on Glen, which will affect our ability to park at our own houses and affect the safety of those who walk their dogs or play with their kids on the street. Because when you have an excess number of parked cars, you have low visibility for the sidewalk. In terms of the image that was just shown about parking, there is a no parking sign that would bisect that building. So in the middle of that lot, so people can safely turn on to Glen from St. Mary's without hitting a parked cars. So that actually means the available parking spaces for two commercial buildings or two commercial enterprises would be maybe 2 to 3 spots, depending on how people park. This also means that we're going to have to contend with commercial traffic traveling down a dead-end residential street. Multiple times a day, people speed down Glen Avenue thinking that they connect to Dunkirk. They're met with a dead-end street and then they speed back up it. So when we add in an excess number of people who don't know the neighborhood, this is going to increase the safety concern of residents, particularly if there's an abundance of parked cars that hide pedestrian visibility. I was almost hit the other day walking my dogs by a non-resident of Glen who was staying at an Airbnb on our street, which is a whole other issue that we don't have time for today. But residents of the area know that Glen and St. Mary's is a dangerous intersection with a lot of misses and a lot of fender benders. There are many contributing factors to this, but one of which is the speed in which people come off of the yield from Fermor onto St. Mary's and an already lack of visibility. So the variance proposes to take a frontage of 23 feet from the sidewalk, which is where that house currently is, and make it 4 feet from the sidewalk. So this decreased visibility can only result in more car accidents, particularly with more people turning on and off a street due to commercial traffic. Where is the snow clearing going to go? On the boulevard, where you already have low visibility. The intersection of Glen and St. Mary's is also very busy for pedestrians as people walk to Glenlawn or they walk to the bus stops. And reduced visibility is going to be a problem, not just for the people that live on this street, but for the safety of anybody who enters and exits that street. So in short, I'm concerned about the safety of the residents on the street and what this kind of grand plan is doing for the community profile of the neighborhood. There was recently a residential sixplex construction that started last year on St. Mary's. I don't know if the developer went bankrupt or what happened, but it was a hole in the street for months until a new developer bought that property. How do we know that we're not going to have a gaping hole at the end of our street, and who is responsible for that? Also, what kind of commercial enterprise is going to be moving in? While Juniors is a mainstay, the hairdresser across from Juniors has been a revolving door of businesses throughout the years. Our neighborhood needs stability and safety, not another revolving door of businesses that inevitably become a dollar store or a weed store. So by entertaining this variance and ones like it, the city is permitting developers to purchase homes along St. Mary's and then letting them go derelict and then using this as an excuse to tear them down. There are many empty houses along this street that are not owned by people, but by developing companies. Like this same consulting company applied for variances on the lot and the lot beside it. And we just heard that it's the same developer that owns both lots. If the concern is densification and places for people to live, why are we allowing a developer to maximize profits with 2 residential units and not one that provides more housing that is safely offset from the street? Also, 3-bedroom units will presumably have high rents with high vacancy rates. And these are the units that we see for rent signs all over the city because people can't afford that. Thank you.
It's Brian Mays here, the counselor for St. Vital. I mean, I know the street, I know the intersection. I'm a little puzzled. I mean, if you're coming off Glen, there's still
Glen onto where?
St. Mary's Road. You're looking north. There's still a sidewalk there, and then whatever the distance is, whether it's 23 feet or 9 feet of front yard. Like I don't know how this is going to affect the visibility of somebody making a turn. Either I think you can make a left onto northbound from.
It's tricky because you need to gauge whatever the traffic coming off of Fermor is going to be, but there's also that weird like garbage recycling bin that exists on that boulevard. So it blocks visibility. And then also depending on despite there being a no parking sign that bisects that lot, people still park their cars there all the time, which means that if you are stopped safely behind the sidewalk at the stop sign, it causes difficulty in you being able to see what's coming.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions.
Yeah, I mean, I heard on the maximized profit piece, proponents in St. Boniface often ask to not build commercial and build only residential, so anyhow, that's not a question, so I'm out of order. Madam Clerk, if there's no further questions.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So next
Thank you.
we're going to call forward James Lee. You're welcome to come join us at the podium. You have up to 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Great, thanks. Hi, I'm also a long-term resident, generational resident on the street. My grandfather's built the house that I'm currently living in. My dad lived there, I live there, and now my daughter lives there. So you can say that I'm a 4th or 5th generation resident on this street. I am very concerned about a commercial development at the corner of St. Mary's and Glen Avenue. First of all, you've got the access, as you say, the visibility is already tough to see, both in and out. So now you're going to cut off the visible space to turn from going southbound St. Mary's onto Glen Avenue. Because if you're going to bring the property all the way forward, you won't be able to see any additional traffic there. The parking there is already a nightmare. You're not according for any commercial parking, and I'm not sure what kind of commercial development you think is going to go in there that's not going to require any office parking or administrative parking or staff parking as they are, just to run the business. They're going to have to find parking, and then they're going to have the additional parking for any clients that are going to come by. If you have a hair salon, you're looking at 15 to 20 additional parking spaces that aren't there. They're going to take up all the library parking spaces. They're going to push all the residents further down the street, depending on the hours of whatever business may go in there. Let's see here. Yeah, library parking. The water damage from a big, huge unit like that, what happens to the other unit beside it? Usually when you guys build up, you guys have the variance for the grade, and usually the water drainage from the new building seeps into the old buildings and causes damage to those properties as well. If those properties are currently owned by the same developer, we assume that they're going to be developed as well. All along St. Mary's, there are vacant properties back and forth. In fact, they tore down 3 buildings just 3 blocks away further down St. Mary's and haven't done anything with it for over a year and a half. They've torn down now on St. Anne's. There's another 6 units there that they're tearing down, and are planning to build another 4 or 5 stage apartment building there as well. Again, haven't done anything with that. They're overreaching themselves to developments. Just across the street, across the street from St. Mary's, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses that have been torn down and recently built into apartment buildings. There's no shortage of apartment buildings or short-term rentals in that area. A lot of those places are actually vacant. You can see 4 rent signs all up and down St. Mary's as you go. As for the commercial buildings, there are 6 for lease and available commercial spots from St. Mary's, from Glen Avenue, from Fermor, up to Vivian even. They're empty. How is putting another commercial space in a residential parking or residential area going to help it if it's vacant? That doesn't bring any other income or supply or anything or benefit to us as a community. We've got, so you say this building is for 4 units with 1 parking spot each, assuming that people renting there only have 1 car and not multiple families moving into a unit that have 5 or 6 cars. Again, where are they going to park? They're going to park further down the residence. They're going to try and park down in the library parking. They're just going to invade. There won't be any space for residents, especially close to that area, to have any parking. They'll be pushed down the whole street, and it's already packed as it is. As Aaron stated, we are overrun with Glen Lawn parking, the Y parking, the soccer field parking, and other daily commute parkings that are there that just park there because it's an empty street sometimes. Units. Garbage issue, you're going to have an extra 4 units of garbage and recycling bins. Those are going to be inevitably taking up the parking spaces that people will have. And where is the snow clearing from a 4-unit parking space going to go? Because there's no space there as it is to put snow. I don't know. Those are my concerns, and basically the parking and access. And as she said, the street on Killarney has a no right turn from Fermor turning onto Killarney, which would connect to Glen and Glenview and Nickel. Once you take that into consideration, to go around St. Mary's and to go around this parking, again, takes time, and we're happy to do it. But now we're going to have no parking there, or there's going to be a numerous amount of cars coming or going or trying to get out. Traffic there will be swamped with commercial buildings and a larger residential building there. A smaller residential building might not affect us as much, but the large one with the commercial proposed is going to be affect all kinds of access through and the back lane. The back lane to the parking is a one-way back lane. It goes from Glen Avenue, turn down the back lane to go down to the library is a one-way, so it's not like you can go back and forth both ways. So the library itself is going to be feel the strain from all this additional parking and additional traffic. That's all I can really say. I oppose this very much.
I do have a question. So I'll ask a question of the developer when they come back, and maybe the admin as well. I mean, the previous speaker seemed to suggest that if this is approved, the construction would block off either the lane or the street, and then therefore we'd have to eliminate that no right turn on Killarney restriction, and I don't see that anywhere in here, and I mean, I don't see that anywhere. I don't see why that would be done. But I will ask about that. But, I mean, the no right turn restriction, I'm glad you say, yes, you're supportive of it, because that was put in. I put that in during my term as councillor, because residents wanted some control on the cut-through traffic. So there's no plan. I have no plan to eliminate or temporarily remove that. It does, as you say, it forces you to go around a couple hours during the rush hour, but that was the trade-off. I mean, I understand what you're saying about would your preference be having residential on the main floor then, like 6 units of residential? Is the concern the commercial bit, or is the concern all of it?
The concern is commercial bit is the main concern. I don't think a commercial building will do well there. There's already across the street and down, is it Frederick, or I think it's Frederick Avenue. There's a commercial building that they just built with the same sort of style, apartment building and commercial on the bottom. That commercial building has been vacant for over a year now. And you drive up and down St. Mary's, there's for lease signs everywhere.
Yep.
So if somebody's looking to build it or open a new building, there's plenty of space and opportunity with parking, with access, and there's a building, the video refit building is for sale, and it already has a full parking lot, and it's a large building for commercial. So any kind of developing or anything that wants to move into St. Mary's or into the Norwood area already has the opportunity to do it. The sites are there. Building a new one, I don't think will encourage anybody else new to come into that area. And if for say you put a restaurant in there, or a fast food restaurant, which would be helpful to the high school students, it's going to create a backlog of foot traffic there as well, and just an overflow of.
That's a fair point. Let me ask about that. So is that one of the permitted uses, a fast food restaurant, or could we ban that as one of the permitted uses?
Yeah, restaurant is a permitted use. There's these specific standards. I'll just have to go to that, but it is a possibility to add a restriction to that use in the zoning agreement.
Well, yeah, I think that's a fair, that would suggest a much bigger clientele than the flotation tank business that was down the street, or, some of the other commercial uses that, video refit, that kind of thing. Okay, thank you for raising that.
And also, as he points out, the 2 trees that he will be taking down are over 100 years old. There's a 35, 40-foot spruce tree in the front yard that will have to be removed to do any kind of construction. The 2 trees on the sidewalk that he's planning to leave are there, but they're smaller trees. There wouldn't be any space to build or plant another large tree, and it would take decades for a tree even to develop into a larger tree there. And I know we like to keep our green spaces in Winnipeg. As you say, maybe perhaps if they're building and taking down a tree, it would be great for them to purchase other trees in other areas, or purchase trees again around the same area. I don't think I have anything else at the moment, so.
Thank you for coming down.
Councillor
Thank you.
Mays, I heard vacancy rate, and I did what I could for research on vacancy, And the latest numbers I can see is from the CMHC in 2023, and they do break it down by neighborhood in Winnipeg. And it looks to be, from the Councilor Mays, I can show you too, the vacancy rates in Winnipeg. You can see that they're very high in West Kildonan relatively at 5%, but in St. Vital in 2023, they were at, looks to be around 3% in 2022, and looks to be at around 1.5% in 2023. So perhaps this is a pocket where there's an exceptionally high rate of vacancy, but I guess the government documents at my disposal would suggest otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean, if people want to make unwise investments, it's not really our, job to judge the market here. I mean, they are asking for a rezoning here, that is fair, and for a certain cluster of variances. But yeah, anyway, it's a valid, there are vacant commercial buildings, there are demolished buildings, might be Frederick, near the church, so it's not Lennox, south of the church, but Christ the King, but
No, that was residential.
but we've approved a lot of these, yeah.
Yeah, and just north of Fermor, like I said, they tore down 3 residential buildings there. That land is, they haven't they've tore it down and they filled it in. They haven't built anything there yet. Why are we approving other buildings when they haven't committed to continuously or to build what they've already started? Now we're looking to start a new project before they've even started another one. Maybe different developers or anything, but at the same time, how many developers and commercial, like large stream developers do we need? And the only person that benefits is the developer in the end. The city gets a little bit of extra revenue from taxes and stuff, but the residents on the street don't benefit at all from that development. Residents nearby, and same with other neighborhood and residents don't, I don't know.
Well, I'll come to that in my comments.
Yeah.
And I'll reserve comment to
Okay.
not get into a protracted debate. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our last registered speaker is Valerie Burachinsky, but I don't see her in our Zoom chat or in the gallery, so we can
Okay.
move on to those that are here to speak in for information. I'm looking to the gallery, I'm seeing none. There's none in registration for that. So do you have any questions for the public service?
Councilor Reed.
I guess my question would just be, I mean, I'll have various comments about the evolution of St. Anne's and St. Mary's and sitting here a year from today, what we might be seeing in some of these sorts of lots, and it's not going to be, 3 stories is going to look quaint. But Devin, do we care if it's, why do we, the city, want commercial at grade there? Is that, speak to that.
Sure. I think the city would look at any sort of development that intensifies the use in a reasonable way to be supportable. The applicant happened to propose a commercial rezoning that aligned with the policies in our planning documents. However, if they came back and applied for something that was strictly residential, obviously we would look at the details of that proposal, but it still would fit with our objectives of intensifying corridors.
Do we have anything, are you able to speak to the fear of when this thing is being built? If approved and when this thing is being built, I'm not sure what tense I'm in there, but you get the point. Is there there's no plan to block off the laneway or block off Glen in its entirety, I'm assuming?
I can't speak to that with absolute certainty. There is conditions in the servicing agreement that talk about construction traffic and that those plans have to be reviewed and approved by Public Works. My assumption would be that if people rely on access by any one of those thoroughfares, that it would not be allowed to be blocked. There would have to be special considerations made, given the context to still accommodate vehicle movement through there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a somewhat odd little enclave. It's 3 streets, all of which dead end. And Killarney interconnects all of them, but it dead ends. But you don't have to get rid of the no right turn in. You might have to come one street further south and then come in and loop around, but there's back lanes. We also don't have the fiasco that we had at Rosewarne and Kingston Row, where the heavy use of the back lane, because the two streets are one way, and to get around, no one's going to go out in St. Mary's, make a left, and come back down. So here we've got two-way traffic on all the streets. So I assume we do not have the jurisdiction here to remove the vexatious recycling bin, or we can maybe ask Public Works to see if that, we can ask Public Works, I assume, to see if that's blocking. I know we've had bus shelters taken out. We had one taken out at Lavallee, or they had one taken out somewhere down there, because it literally, it was ill-designed. It was blocking the view.
Are we talking about the one on St. Mary's?
Yeah, the woman who spoke first talked about the, yeah, I think
I'd head for more.
it's a Dan Vandel advertising space for a long time, I think, so.
Sorry, and I'm just looking on Street View. I see just a typical recycling garbage.
Okay, I will let us note that,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
that it might not be part of the condition, it might just be something we'll follow up with. I assume it's Public Works who determines.
Yeah, it would have some involvement in the approvals of
Yeah.
locating those facilities, sure.
And there aren't, yeah, okay. Good, okay, I think those are my questions for the admin.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
All right, so John Winthrop, you're welcome to come back down and speak in rebuttal to the comments that have been made.
Good morning. First, through the chair, I'd like to thank the residents for their comments and coming out here today. I appreciate the points they made and the important view they have on their community and their neighborhood. I'm a Winnipegger too, and I can understand a lot of their concerns, so I'll address a few of them. Parking and commercial, and the idea of providing commercial space here. The way the cities have been constructed and designed over the last few decades is we've separated residential from commercial. So you need to hop in your car to drive somewhere to get commercial and get services and then drive back home. By adding commercial here, we're hoping the idea is that you can reduce the amount of people who are driving, and then you don't need to have as much parking and cars and vehicles driving all over the place. This location supports alternative modes of transportation. It's very walkable, cycling, transit. We're hoping that people will live here and consider and use those alternative modes of traffic or transportation. If we keep building more parking stalls and designing cities to encourage driving, then we're going to continue getting people driving down cross streets like Glen Avenue. We don't think we're going to be adding traffic to Glen Avenue. This is right on St. Mary's Road. Anybody coming in and out of this place who lives there is either going to use the back lane and exit on and off on St. Mary's. They'll become a resident in the neighborhood, will understand and know that they can't drive down to Killarney. I'll touch on construction. I recently was involved in a couple of projects over on Bristol Avenue in St. Boniface, building fourplexes. They access the property from the back of the lane. This wasn't work crews of 100 or 20 people. This was a small work crew that came and left. The heavy equipment came in, was on there for a couple of days. It was dropped off. The truck left. The flatbed truck left. It removed the building, then it dug the foundation, and then it left. There was no blocking of the lane for more than whatever length of time it took to unload and load up the equipment. After that, it was mostly contractors and pickup trucks who parked nearby on the side street, and it wasn't 20 or 30. We're talking about less than half a dozen to construct a building like this. Of course, there will be some hours where there will be more intense activity on a site, such as a delivery of wood or supplies. That would be from the back lane. If we were to close a public right-of-way like a back lane or a street, there's a fee and a process you have to go through with the City of Winnipeg Public Works to be able to do that. We're not envisioning that. My clients have built other fourplexes and buildings like this elsewhere. When it comes to timing, I'm not involved in some of the other projects. It's not always about financing why a project might be delayed. And this is no fault of the developer or the city, but there's a process the city takes a developer through. You have to go through a building permit examination, you have to get inspections, and you have to wait sometimes to get inspectors either from the province or from the city to come out and look at a site. Sometimes it delays a project until we get an approval or an inspection is completed. That's the reality of when it comes to construction. I don't know if another builder up the street went bankrupt or anything like that. I wasn't involved in that project, but I do understand a building permit takes time at the City of Winnipeg. I think everybody would like to see it issued a lot quicker, but sometimes you might get a partial permit to do the foundation while you're waiting for your other permits to flow, and it takes time and you might be delayed. Most developers I know, the longer it takes, the more it's costing them, and they certainly want to do it efficiently. When it comes to, it just doesn't, I should add, it doesn't just mean the developer makes money off this stuff. We live in a democratic capitalist society. They make some money. Also, the City of Winnipeg increases its tax base. I just looked at a project I did. I did 3 infill houses about 9 years ago. Within 3 years, the taxes went up, the revenue of the City of Winnipeg by 310%. So when you change your property, you do see an increase in tax revenues to the City of Winnipeg.
What was the dollar amount?
The dollar amount, the house at that time was paying about it was 2015, they were paying $1,500 a year in taxes. Within 3 years, there was 3 brand new houses and they were collectively paying just under $6,000 in taxes, property taxes. So between 2015.
We've utterly failed to keep any of the revenue local. I mean, that debate, you know, I've heard this, I've heard this.
I'd like to see more revenue come into the City of Winnipeg, so, but that was just the idea that, when it comes to.
I didn't get the difference though. What's the first number and what's the second number?
1,500 before, 6,000 after.
Okay, got it,
Yeah.
thanks.
In terms of commercial, again, St. Mary's Road is a high-speed, 4-lane divided roadway, truck route, winter route. A lot of those single-family detached dwellings that were built years ago are reaching the end of a lifespan of either renovate them or do something else. And a lot of people are simply not looking to own a single detached house road at the corner of Fermor and St. Mary's. It's more appropriate to see density along there. This is where we want density. This is not where people are wanting to have a yard, a front yard, a rear yard, and raise a family in a yard situation. This is St. Mary's with high speeds, trucks, winter trucks, transit, etc. So this is where you want to put your density. When we put in commercial here, there might be some vacant commercial space now, but once the building constructed, the idea is that we find somebody who occupy that space for the rest of the life of that building for the next 20 years. So today's market might be soft, but by the time we get the building constructed, finished, and hopefully occupied, the risk is entirely on the developer if they can't find somebody to go into that space, but they're optimistic that there's a demand out there, a growing demand for people to walk down the street and attend a personal service, whether it's counseling, medical, dental. If restaurant is a high traffic generator and is a concern, we'd happily see that restricted in terms of a zoning agreement. That would be caveat registered on the title and would not prevent a restaurant from going into that space without going through a public hearing process such as this again.
Okay.
That's me.
No, that, I think, addressed the questions that I had. Yeah, I mean, this is, I'll deal with a lot of I'll have a lot of remarks, basically. But the plan is not to block the street or the lane during construction. I mean, sometimes there really is a concern about safety and about, it's an odd layout, the library, through no fault of anybody in the room. But it's been odd since 1965 when Fermor was expanded. So that's the hand we're dealt. So yeah, that's, as long as you're conscious that, yeah, that the lane is the woman who spoke is right, it's the only way in. So.
Yeah, and I live in Osborne Village recently. There was 2 high-rise buildings constructed. One of them did not even close. They closed a lane along Osborne Street for its indefinite time, but they didn't close Osborne Street, and they didn't close the back lane, and they didn't close the flanking street. They closed it partially because there was a crane on site, and that's for high rise. We're doing we're not having a crane out here. The piece of equipment we're going to have out there is like a backhoe or something like that. That's about as heavy as equipment we're going to do. This is going to be like wood frame construction.
Okay.
So I don't envision us blocking a lane or blocking the back lane. Again, we want to make sure there's adequate fire protection services at all times. So the city's not going to allow that. But I can see a vision where you're going to have a truck, a flatbed truck come and unload and make a delivery of lumber. That's going to happen once or twice, but we're talking like 15 minutes, not a half a day. Or the city's not going to allow that. Simply, they're not going to allow it. The fire truck has to roll through there. So
My mom always hated that access and always parked on Glen when she took us to the library when I was a kid. So yeah, some of that will still be there. It'll be there long after I'm gone.
yeah,
probably.
and we'll work with Public Works to make sure anything that's disruptive for traffic is in accordance with their knowledge and understanding, and it's appropriately flagged and marked.
Okay, I'm ready to see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winter.
Thanks.
Time for a motion, I would,
Madam Clerk?
Yep. you can
and away we
proceed
go.
with the motion.
All right, I will, we'll deal first then with the rezoning, looking to the requirements here. I'll move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary carried.
I'll move that the receipt of public representations be concluded. Aye.
Oh, sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, contrary carried.
All right. I'll move that if the business with the banning the restaurant, is that here or under the restaurant, under the variance?
I would include it under the zoning agreement. so
Okay,
on.
and additionally, I would like plan approval to come back here and we can sort out, I'm not going to get into size of the shrubs. We'll leave that to somebody to sort it out and bring it back. That also that's rezoning, not variance, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay, so if we can note plan approval. So I'll move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and forwarded to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development,
All in favor?
subject to the,
With the following amendments, that the following uses shall not be permitted, A being a restaurant.
very good, and that plan approval comes back to the Real Community Committee.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
But I get to give supporting reasons.
Okay.
Okay, which I'll try and do in under.
didn't we fix that?
So- We
Oh, no,
did.
it's still
Yeah, it's
supporting
the new, yeah, no,
Okay,
it's-
go ahead,
this
Councilor
is
Ray.
the new day here. Thank you to the residents for coming out. I appreciate the concerns. We're in an era, though, where the era of the single-family home on St. Anne's and St. Mary's is ending. I had two town hall meetings yesterday about the proposed move, and we'll be voting on that next March, the proposed move to allow fourplexes everywhere in the city, on any residential lot, and a 48-foot height limit if you live within 800 meters of frequent transit. That is going to be an interesting debate. This street would be absolutely affected by that, all of it. It's all within 800 meters walking distance of frequent transit. That, to me, is an alteration of the character of the neighborhood. I don't really mind the duplexes. Fourplexes, 48 feet tall, though, that's a concern. But if you don't want densification of that sort, you've got to approve it somewhere else. And I think the somewhere else is on the main corridors. I don't want to, so I appreciate people have concerns. We will try and deal with the concerns that were raised about during the construction. Very good point about don't have a restaurant here because you'd have a lot of potential traffic from the high school. That's a fair point, I think. The 4 parking spots, we are headed to a meeting, Councillor Allard and I, in which the public service is going to propose that under the new parking requirements along the corridors be less than 1 car stall per unit. A lot of people say we should have no parking minimums. Let the market decide. So here at least we are having 1 stall per unit that is being provided, not for the commercial, but if it's not a restaurant, hopefully there will not be a lot of vehicular traffic. I'll be blunt, this is gonna look quaint in about a year's time. I don't like to tell people to take something they don't like, but we are going to have a 10-story height limit in the corridor area that Mr. Clark here described, right? You go about 4 blocks further south to Norbury, you're going to start seeing much taller buildings than this. You're going to start seeing probably a reduced parking requirement. So the on-street parking issue will be exacerbated on the Barrington, Berrydale, Norbury, Ustick, you get the point. So this, people may not love this, but I think it is a compromise compared to what is going to be coming in a lot of other areas. We've had, St. Mary's Road has had residential above commercial for decades. The Lotus restaurant at Barrington was there in the 60s with apartments above it. It's a tattoo shop now or something. Arts Flowers has been there throughout my entire life, I believe, and apartments above some of those, maybe not that building, but there's been a mix of commercial with residential above for literally for decades along that stretch. So I don't think that's out of character. You do get parking on the street, I know, but that's, you live near a library, which I helped save. You know why there wouldn't, if we'd torn down the library and put in a condo building, you wouldn't have library users on your street. That's true, but you also wouldn't have a library. So I apologize. I don't apologize for saving the library. The parking for the library is ridiculous. Everyone acknowledges that, but at least there are some stalls. They do police that, so you don't park in the library lot and saunter over to the Y anymore. That's policed. You have to register now. So if people think they're going to park all day and all night in the library parking lot, they're going to get a rude awakening, and we'll remind the library of that and the parking authority. So I appreciate there already is on-street parking, but some of that's because we've got amenities nearby. People playing basketball wouldn't park there if there wasn't a basketball court, but the basketball court is there. It's a neighborhood amenity. So is the high school. So is the soccer field. It's $1 million soccer field. So, I'd rather have it in my ward than in Southdale or something. It's a good community amenity. So, long way of saying, yeah, this may not be everything the neighborhood wants, but it is a damn sight smaller than what's going to be coming in a lot of other places along St. Mary's and St. Anne's. So I think it's a reasonable compromise. So those are my supporting reasons.
Okay. So moved by Councilor Mays. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I'll move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor? Aye. Contrary? Carried.
All right, so please note that the committee has made a recommendation on this matter that will now proceed to council. No further representations are permitted on the subdivision and rezoning, or the rezoning application. All persons registered for the public hearing will receive notice when the matter is to be considered by council.
On to the variance, page 5, I'll move that the report of Winnipeg, and we aren't, the issues with the restaurant have been dealt with then under the zoning, and the issue with the plan approval and the tree deployment, we've dealt with that then.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll move that the report of the Winnipeg Public Service be taken as read.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I'll move that the receipt of public representations be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I'll move that in accordance with subsection 247.3 of the City of Winnipeg Charter, the variances are consistent with Plan Winnipeg and any applicable secondary plan. They do not create a substantial adverse effect on the amenities, use, safety, and convenience of the adjoining property and adjacent area, including an area separated from the property by a street or waterway. It is the minimum modification of a zoning bylaw required to relieve the injurious effect of the zoning bylaw on the applicant's property and is compatible with the area in which the property to be affected is situated. Supporting reasons, I spoke at some length already about this. This isn't, normally we'd require an applicant like this to pave the lane. Uniquely, amongst all that Glenview, Nickel, this is the one paved stretch already, so we don't need to require that from the developer. So, yeah, I think the variances are, the shape of the lot also creates the need for some of these variances because of the angled property. So, I mean, I appreciate the neighbors have concerns. However, I think this is going to look like a good development when, in light of, there are going to be much taller structures and more dense structures approved both north and south of this in the coming years, I would suspect. And it is certainly adjacent to public transit. So those are my supporting reasons.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Mays, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried.
I'll move that the recommendation of the Winnipeg Public Service be concurred in and the variances approved.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary,
And
carried.
I'll move that the public hearing with respect to this application be concluded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried.
Please note that the committee's decision with respect to this application may be appealed. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the order issued, which will be mailed to all persons registered.
Thank you.
So do we move adjournment?
Correct.
I'll move
Okay.
adjournment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, carried.
Okay.